according to the Muslim Brotherhood, but that could still rise as the day goes on.
Tom Rayner there. Sky News has been granted rare access to North Korea, where events are being held to mark the 60th anniversary of the truce which ended the Korean War. The reclusive country's biggest ever military parade has taken place in the capital, Pyongyang. We brought you live pictures within the last hour. Tens of thousands of military personnel taking part in the ceremony. From the capital, Pyongyang, Sky's Asia correspondent Mark Stone reports.
There can't be many other spectacles like this anywhere. North Korea's Arirang performance. It is vast. It's almost impossibly choreographed. And it says so much about this country. The control, the apparent loyalty and the isolation. Because few outside North Korea have ever seen it before. There are no projectors here. That flag is made up of people. This is Pyongyang's May Day Stadium. It seats 150,000 people and it's full. Here to see a celebration of power and patriotism. At times it feels like propaganda in overdrive. It'll be repeated 4 nights a week for 6 weeks.
Of course, this is what the performance is really all about. Kim Jong-un, he's been sitting here throughout. Watching it all must make him feel incredibly powerful, and for the country, it's designed to make it look united, capable, and very confident.
And that is exactly what the government invited us here to see. But consider this, away from here and strictly out of view are North Korea's prison camps. There are said to be double the number of people locked up in those than there are here right now. This man and his government deny their existence. These are the people we're allowed to see. Everyone we've met, everyone we've spoken to seems genuinely loyal and happy. But then only the loyal can live in the capital, and we can't leave it.
And we have peace today in our Pyongyang.
What about the rest of North Korea, of DPRK? Is there peace there?
Of course.
And happiness?
Yes, all the people are happy in our country.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure.
But among the flowers at this display, rockets. This young soldier told us how great her leaders are. We're a proud nation, she said. We hope to be the most powerful country in the world. It is almost impossible to get under the skin of this place, a country with one of the worst human rights records in the world, but with an almost cult-like loyalty. Mark Stone, Sky News in Pyongyang, North Korea.
Some truly extraordinary pictures emerging from North Korea. Stephanie Kleine-Ahlbrandt is the Northeast Asia Project Director for the International Crisis Group. It's an organisation, an NGO, aimed at preventing conflict. She joins us from Beijing. Stephanie, welcome to you. Of course, North and South Korea are still technically at war.
That's absolutely correct. There's an armistice, but no actual peace agreement.
It's difficult to see what non-governmental organisations, however high-minded, can do about this. This is the stuff of intractable geopolitical problems, isn't it? Which is why the Chinese are so important.
That's absolutely correct. You know, China is looking to push North Korea to come back to talks as a way of initially at least decreasing tensions and possibly then getting to a resolution which eventually would include some type of peace agreement.
Presumably the Chinese must say to the North Koreans, as they look at these massive Stalinist-era parades, look, we used to be just like you, but we embraced change, reform, modernisation. We looked outwards rather than just inwards. We started to trade with the rest of the world, and hey presto, look, we are now the emerging superpower. You could follow us.
That's pretty much, you know, the type of message that they're giving, is that by engaging in, you know, Chinese-style economic reforms, they can provide for their people, they can enhance stability, they don't have to engage in political forms and political reform, and they can have a better, more peaceful peninsula. That's, I think, China's #1 solution to the entire problem on the Korean Peninsula, and I think that there's a belief that through economic reform we might actually see denuclearization. That's the belief in Beijing to a certain extent.
Yeah, Stephanie, there are some key differences, aren't there? And we were just looking at one of them, Kim Jong-un. I mean, we know, and we think about what's happened recently to Bo Xilai in China, we know that sometimes the leadership struggles in China can get pretty unpleasant, to put it mildly. But there is a process there is a system, and it's kind of essentially rational. I don't think we've got quite the same confidence in the rationality of the North Korean regime.
Well, I mean, I think that the problem is that it's just not very transparent. Obviously, Chinese politics in and of themselves are very obscure and hard to make out. But I think it's tough for the outside world to understand the types of you know, inner moves that Kim Jong-un has been making to, for example, transfer power from the military back to the party, to keep his supporters online, keep his detractors at bay. Those types of things go on in all governments, and that is going on in North Korea as well. It's just that we don't have great insight into exactly what the details are.
So you're actually billing him as a reformer in the making?
No, I think that we are, you know, I think there was a lot of hope when he came into power that he might be a closet reformer. We have yet to see, you know, concrete steps towards reform. There have been some small incidents that might look like they could perhaps lead to reform, but so far it's been more tinkering with the system than engaging in real reforms.
Yeah. History teaches us, Stephanie, doesn't it? And we're looking at pictures as you're speaking of this massive demonstration of men and materiel on a parade ground somewhere in Pyongyang. History teaches us that eventually these authoritarian regimes collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. We think back to the Soviet Union. They spent so much money on arms and weapons and their armies that eventually they just couldn't fund the gig.
Well, I think that that's been sort of the underlying assumption about North Korea for a very long time, and perhaps that's the reason that we've never actually resolved the issue. There was a sense in many Western countries a decade ago that this country just can't continue to exist. And, you know, on the contrary, it does, and it continues to defy really the strongest regime system in the world set up by the United Nations. And one of the key reasons for that, of course, is China and China's support.
Kleine-Ahlbrandt is with the International Crisis Group. Stephanie, thanks very much indeed. You can find out more about the world's most secretive nuclear state, full stop, on Sky News for iPad. The app is free for Sky customers. You need your Sky ID. More than a dozen anti-fracking campaigners have been arrested after staging a protest at a rural site.